hour or two passes as you're just sitting here holding the watch for the western gate of Leicester. What do you smell?
I think I just I watch them. I watch for any weird movements that the hyenas might be doing. Like I want this to be like a very, like, through just sort of my experiences in battle and everything that I went through. Like, what does this feel like? What does this congregation feel like? What does it feel like they're doing? Like from their movements, from like the way that the big hyena is sort of like communicating to them and everything.
Roll nature.
Could it be insight?
No.
Alright. 16.
Okay. You know that these things, it's weird the way they're behaving. They're behaving like they're protecting and expanding their territory at the same time, but instead of like having a specific territory, they're just like protecting and expanding the space around the bigger hyena. And they seem to just be walking up and down parallel to the border of the city. But you're able to tell that this is coincidence and not by any intelligent antagonistic design.
Did I notice anything like weird about their forms, about the way they move, about like could I like make any recognition or any statement about the way they move and how, yeah, these are not, like, I think I already know these are not like just animals, like they're not just natural animals that are walking around. Like, what could I make an arcana check or like maybe a religion, I think would be.
Okay, I'll tell you this from your nature roll. The way they move around is not like a normal predator. A normal predator will like stalk and hunt its prey and attack when it thinks it's in an advantageous position. These things see something and they go for it, and they devour it and tear it apart in seconds. They're vicious.
What have I seen them like kill so far?
Real hyenas, jackals, wild boars, small dogs.
So mainly
foxes.
Animals.
Mainly animals, yeah. Ain't many people out there.
Yeah. All right. Yeah, I continue to keep watch.
Okay.
Yeah, every now and again I lose focus. I think about Carp. I think about Orias a bit, and I hate him.
Whenever you think about Orias, your scar pulsates a little bit.
In what way?
Kind of in the same way as it did just before the hilt came out of you.
Was it painful at all?
Mm-mm. It felt like something was pushing through your chest, but not in a painful way. If that makes sense.
I see.
Yeah.
Okay. I think about my friends, the stars. I think about Rain. I think about the next step for me.
Mm-hmm. What is the next step for Bane?
Wants to go see the seer. Wants to go. Bane isn't good with the thinking stuff. Wants to go to the person who has the best thinking stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Damn. The last time the seer saw Bane was... When was the last time you guys interacted? It was after you beat Riyab and before you went out to the Faewilds, right? I wonder if he knows.
That I'm alive?
I wonder if he knows that you died.
Oh, he knows that I died.
You think so?
Yeah, because he got the Thunder Sword, right? I think we had an interaction.
You did give him that sword, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, yeah, that tracks. Oh, buddy.
Yeah.
Seer.
Yeah.
Bane. Everyone. Oh, no. Oh, Jesus Christ. Okay. It's like late afternoon at this point. The weird hyenas have just kind of like paced back and forth up and down the landscape. And eventually you hear the sound of heavy hoof prints coming from the direction of the town. It's similar to when you first heard them. And you turn and you see Volodymyru and Struthio on this big wild boar. They kind of like screech to a halt in front of the gate. And Volodymyru looks at you as he slides down the boar, and he says, "So, heard you wanted to evacuate the place, huh?"
Yeah.
Well, Thaneous, it's very, very clear that you're skilled, and you've done us a great deed. So I'll help you, to a point. Struthio, I, Risa, and Latrons, we're gonna be staying. We're gonna fight this thing.
What about the rest of the people?
We'll see them off. Make sure they're safe out there. Latrons has done some more work in the divination, and they're able to tell that these things, if they're going to attack at all, it's not going to be anytime soon. So before then, we need to figure out how to fight these things.
How do you suppose we do that?
Well, with Struthio here's knowledge and Latrons' ability to be a diviner and like look into how things work on a higher plane, as it were, they should be able to figure out how we can best do that.
Okay.
At this point, we're thinking simple alpha tactics. Take down the head and the body will flee, as it were.
I don't think so.
He cocks his head to the side and he says, "What makes you so sure?"
I hand him the scope and tell him to look at the dot, and then I say, "Listen, I've hunted things. I've killed creatures. Those aren't acting like any animal that I've ever faced. We can't assume alpha tactics with them."
He takes a closer look at these things, and he looks at Struthio and then hands him the telescope as well. He looks to you and he says, "This goes against everything in my nature, running away like this. But
listen, I commend you for wanting to fight back. I mean, that's why I'm here. And I can help you to a point. But you have to understand that I have a mission. And that is above all.
He stands up and he kind of leans to one side and he looks at you and he says, "Figure out what that mission was between this morning and now?"
Yeah.
"Lay it on me, bud."
No.
He looks genuinely taken aback.
It's dangerous. And it's dangerous for people to know about it.
Roll persuasion.
19.
You see Struthio roll his eyes beneath his veil, but Volodymyru looks at you and he says, "I can't say I understand, but you're entitled to hold your own beliefs. I won't pry any further. Everyone deserves that."
And listen, a big reason why I want to help you out right now is because I sense some similar feeling to that fucker with those things.
Hmm.
And it's He's done enough. Listen, from when I was fighting that thing, it seemed like they attack in close range. You know, it just kind of bit me and whatnot. I can't assume that it has some weird shooting that it does or something. But maybe we can prepare for the fight. So as it is, you know. I'm not really good at doing that long range thing, so I can go in and attack close range if need be. But maybe we can start it out with some staying on roof tactics and sort of shooting them down. And
he looks at you, and then he looks back at Struthio, and he says, "You know, range isn't really our tactic. I want to try it, but we're more confident with stealth. Well, not me, his gang. We're more, my team, the Bravers, we're better at hand to hand."
Same here. It's just, I have to... you saw that weird goop that they injected into me, right?
Yeah.
This isn't like fighting the Kuther. I don't know what that does to your body.
Volodymyru looks pensively at the ground before looking back up at Struthio. And he tells Struthio to... He begins to say something, and then he looks back at you, and he says, "How do you feel about scouting?"
I can, as a general sort of concept. Yeah, scouting is cool. I guess.
We figure out what these things are capable of. We watch them closer.
Take the fight to them?
Not necessarily, not yet at least. Figure out how they work, how they hunt.
I don't know how to hide my presence.
You feel a tapping on your shoulder.
Okay, I don't look, and I see in front of me, and I see who is still in front of me.
You see, roll perception.
15.
You see Volodymyru standing next to his big wild boar, which has nobody on top of it. You hear a voice to your right that you recognize say...
I say, Struthio. Listen. That was great. I get your point. So, are you saying you would scout alone?
I'm saying I could teach you.
Yeah, sure, fuck it, why not?
Volodymyru just kind of doubles over with laughter.
Hey, Volu, could you keep my watch?
Can't do, buddy. Me and Poco will keep it good.
Alright.
He moves his boar to right beside the building and hops up on him and scrambles in front of the ballista. Struthio and you, however, you see Struthio just kind of turn and begin walking out towards the wildlands. At this point, it's late afternoon and a cool breeze is blowing. He stands out there and he turns around and he just stares you in the eye. And he says, "First things first, find me."
I'm gonna crouch.
You crouch, and as you do, a gust of wind just like billows across the plains, and as it does, Volodymyr just disappears.
Whoa, that's cool. Magic is tight.
Magic is pretty tight.
Hey, Struthio? Hey, Lucio.
Speed boost!
Hey, Struthio. I found you. You can come out now. I see you. Try another. Let's go to the next challenge. Stop wasting my time. Stop wasting my time. We don't have much time until they come. We need to like stop doing these games. I already know where you are.
Trying to do?
I'm trying to make him think. I could see completely through this invisibility or whatever shit he's doing. And I found you already. Like,
roll deception.
15.
I love Dungeons and Dragons. Another gust of wind like sails right in front of him again, and he reappears. He hasn't moved a single inch. He was like actually in the process of turning around, and he like looks back and he sees you, and he's okay. Well, maybe you're a little better at this than I gave you credit for.
Yep, that's me.
Well.
So how do I do that?
I can't. Really? He's just like utterly shocked.
Listen, Struthio, that was really good. That was actually really good. I'm proud of you. That was great. Like, listen, I'm like level 10. Listen, like I've done a lot. Okay, I've killed 3 demigods. Like, that was really good. I'm proud. You did well.
Struthio's just kind of like looking around in disbelief at this point. He just like lets out a heavy sigh, and he moves towards you and gives you a pat on the shoulder. As he does that, a huge burst of arcane energy just like erupts from him. And he says, "Go hide. You have 10 minutes.
Oh, fuck. I start running.
Okay.
I start running to the direction of a tree that I don't see because we're in grasslands.
It's big grass.
Yeah. Once I realize that it's all just grass, I go into the city.
Okay. Go ahead and roll stealth.
Ooh, I know. Could I go around and then I want to like just like scale the wall of the city, like make it look like I'm running into the grasslands, and I like run and then I like climb the walls of the city.
Sure.
And then just like go in from there.
Yeah.
All right. It's 9 for stealth. I'm just like, so I'm in the city and I'm like hiding. I'm hiding behind like in an alleyway, like behind a box or something.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm very like, you can obviously like my beard is sticking out, like my foot is sticking out, like it's yeah.
You from your little hidey hole, you see Struthio just like walking down the city streets, and he walks past your alley, and he just like looks directly at you, and he just kind of like gives a.
When he looks at me, I pull my leg back, and
he lets out a deep exhale, and he says, "Thaneous is not here."
It's me, Box Alley.
Thaneous, what are you trying to do?
I'm hiding.
In a city?
Yeah. Where else would I hide? In the grass?
Yes.
There's no, the grass is... Was the grass high enough for me to hide?
It's like medium grass. You could
Oh.
hide if you were prone.
I don't know. The grass... I don't know. I feel like I would stick out more in the grass than in an alleyway.
Mayhaps I should really just do the scouting on my own then.
You said you would teach me.
He lets out a deep exhale and he says, Bane,
Yeah.
if I'm going to teach you, you're going to need to do things my way.
I mean, I did. You told me to find you, and then I found you. And then
I'll give you that one.
Then you told me to hide, and then I hid.
He, leans against the side of the alleyway, and he, looks at you with your foot still sticking out of this basket, and he says, we need to work on hiding in the wilderness. Camouflage and hiding our scent.
You know, that's fair. Alright, let's go from the top.
He walks up to you, and he pats you on the shoulder in the same spot and, rips something off of you. It feels like if tape existed, feels like he pulled a piece of tape off of you. And then he begins to walk out of the city.
Yo, what the fuck was that?
It was going to be something to help you with being stealthy, but we'll have to try it again. For real this time.
Sure.
You guys go back to the gate, where Volodymyr is sitting there, and Poco is just kind of curled up, taking a nap at this point. Struthio turns to you, and he hands you a piece of paper with these markings on it. And he says, this is a charm. It's going to help you in hiding your scent. And it's also going to help you be less heavy, lighter on your feet, as it were.
That's wild.
Yes.
How does it do that? Well, I guess magic exists.
Magic, yes.
Alright. I take it.
He just says, put it anywhere on your body. And this will be a crutch for now, but soon you'll be able to do this with ease.
I mean, I just have pants. What if does it stick to me?
It sticks to you, yeah.
Oh, I'm gonna put it, across my scar.
Okay.
Like a Band-Aid.
As you do, your body just kind of releases this wave of arcane energy, and a little bit of wind flows out from you. You feel lighter. Struthio turns to you and he says, think about the direction of the wind. Think about what is around you. Think about what you can use to conceal your presence. Walk on the balls of your feet and breathe in through your nose and out through your mouth. You have 10 minutes to find a good hiding spot.
Okay. Alright, I think about the wind.
Okay.
Which direction does the wind feel like it's heading?
Roll nature.
13.
It seems like the wind is blowing east.
Alright. I'll head in the direction of east.
Okay.
And I'm gonna find a particularly taller patch of grass, and then I'm going to lie down on it, and then I'm gonna get up. I'm gonna go to a shorter patch of grass and actually hide in that one. But I'm actually, I want to try to have my tracks go in the direction of the bigger patch of grass and jump into a shorter one.
Roll acrobatics. God!
Is this a dexterity saving throw against an effect I can see?
No.
Alright, then I get in that one.
God. Okay. You do a big jump and you land on your leg that was wounded before, which reopens and begins to bleed a little bit.
Fuck. Ow.
Yeah, it hurts a little bit.
I removed my amulet and I put it on the wound.
Okay.
Stop the bleeding.
You put it back on, and the same kind of like burst of energy expands for like a second, but then it like putters out.
Fuck. I remove it.
Uh-huh.
I put it back on here.
It explodes in the same kind of like arcane energy as it did the first time, and it seems like it's pretty decent.
Fuck. Alright, I'll rip off some grass, and I'll just like fucking try to tie it around my leg or something and stop the bleeding.
Sure, roll medicine.
17.
Okay. You manage to tie together some of the longer fibers of this grass, and you make a makeshift tourniquet that stops the bleeding a little, or stops the bleeding for the most part, yeah.
Okay. I'm gonna move... You know what? I want to find my tracks, and I want to move backwards, so that it looks like I'm not making any new tracks. And then when I move backward an appropriate amount, like let's say, like, I don't know, like 50 meters away or something, I want to like jump into a new patch of grass entirely, and hide in there.
All right. Do you want to do the old jump and hide again?
Yeah.
Okay. Roll acrobatics again.
Alright, that's better. That's an unnatural 20.
Okay, yeah. You, like, retrace your steps backwards, and then you, like, quickly turn your body, and you throw yourself into another patch of this bigger grass. And you crouch down and make your presence as unknown as possible. Roll stealth with advantage.
It's an 8.
Good.
I'm not good with the stealth.
Okay. A little bit of time passes before this next bit happens. Time goes by, and you get the feeling that more than 10 minutes have passed. What do you do?
I stay hiding.
Okay. Another 5 minutes go by, and you feel a pat on your shoulder.
I look up.
You look up, and you see Struthio there. And he looks confused, worried, and satisfied all at the same time. He says, "Firstly, I've never seen anybody use a charm like that before. I'm quite sad that it's bloody now, but you did a lot of very good things here, Thane."
Thanks. I don't know, it's just instinct.
I'm sure it was. He stands up and begins walking towards Aleister. He calls over his shoulder and says, "We probably should get inside for tonight."
Yeah. Wait, so what does that mean? Have I passed the test?
I suppose for this first bit, yes.
Alright. So what do you think about the whole, like, I'm gonna leave, like, some bloody leaves there, and I'm gonna hide another spot, and, like, confuse, and all that?
He looks at you and he raises an eyebrow, and he says, "Was that intentional, Thaneous?"
100%.
Roll deception.
That is, deception. Where is deception? Just trying to see if I'm proficient. I don't think I'm proficient. 19.
Okay. You see a smile grow on his face as he turns around and he says, "It was magnificent."
Thanks. Alright, yeah, let's go rest a bit. And I think as we're going in, I want to make sure that people are keeping watch in the shack.
Yeah, you look in the shack and you see Volodymyru and another one of his hunters, the one that was wearing the, like, mask over the top half of their face. They're keeping a keen eye out on the western edge, watching the pack of hyenas there.
Cool. Have you noticed anything weird?
He calls out and he says, "No, not really, but these fuckers are pretty vicious."
Mm-hmm.
He kind of like looks at him for a little bit, and you see worry on his face for just a second before he like takes the telescope down, and he looks at you with a big grin, and he says, "We'll be fine."
I'm sure we will. Should I roll deception for that?
No, because he vehemently believes it.
Okay. Yeah, I'm gonna go, just check around the city, see how the moving process is going.
Okay.
And stuff like that, see if I can help.
Roll investigation.
3.
You don't see any, like, designated, like, obvious signs that point towards a move out is happening. But you do see the occasional resident packing things up as you walk by and you look into their homes. You do see Risa down the way, and you see that she's kind of, like, boarding a big crate of stuff behind her. She gives you a wave as she sails on by.
How's it going?
Pretty good. Got most of the Western Quadrant done.
Alright, if you need any help, I can do so.
She shoots you an okay hand.
Yeah, I think I say... am I still walking the street with you?
Yeah.
I think I say, like, hey, so what was the amulet about?
The amulet?
That you gave me?
Oh, the charm.
The charm. Same.
Are you familiar with spells in general, like as a concept?
I mean,
of course you are.
Personally, I'm not, but I had a. Never mind.
He kind of like scratches his eyebrow beneath his veil before he pulls his hands back down, and he says, "There's a certain spell that allows you to disguise yourself far better. That charm, simply cast it on you."
Is it disguise self?
No.
Oh, okay.
It's a different one, friend. Disguise self is... That's mostly for... Actually, I don't really know what one would use that for. I mostly use this one for hunting purposes. It allows me to hide my presence from anything that could be tracking me.
Alright. Well, I'll take your word. Yeah, I'll take your word for it, since I apparently hit a bunch. And that's nothing that I've done before, so...
He looks at you and he says, "You did pretty good."
Thanks. So what's on the agenda for tomorrow?
Tomorrow, I'm going to be checking in with Latrons again to see if they've made any progress with figuring anything out about those hyenas. I suppose we could do more training, or I suppose you could walk around town, ask some people, see how they're doing, help them out.
Yeah, I think I'm going to do a bit of that tonight.
Sure.
Yeah, let me know if you need anything.
Will do. And he breaks away and begins walking towards his home. What do you snoo?
I'm just going to walk around and sort of, maybe there's almost like a montage of me like helping people, like carrying stuff and everything, and every once in a while, like I'm sort of like, someone is panicked and not really understanding the situation, and I go in and like hey, like, hopefully this is only temporary. It's just we're trying to figure things out. Also, my name is Bane. You probably don't know me.
You walk up to this younger looking kid, and he, after you say that, he's like, "Well, of course I know you. You're a hero. You saved us."
Yeah. Thanks. We're gonna try.
If there's anyone that can do it, it's you.
Hopefully. Yeah. Let me know if you or your family need any help.
Will do. You, as you say that, you look into the house that he's standing in front of, and you see two familiar figures, leaning against the wall. You remember these two figures. Roll history.
13.
You remember brief flashes of the first night you were here, of their faces, and then you remember these were the two people that you woke up in that cot with. They just kind of like give you a wave as you're on your way out.
I think I blush and I wave back.
Okay. Roll charisma with advantage.
Alright. Ooh! 10.
Okay. The night begins to fall, and you feel your body beginning to grow tired. What do you snoo?
So, who... Is there, like, an established, like, this person is the leader of this place?
The only thing you really know is that there's two major groups here, the Bravers and the Still. Volodymyru is the head of the Bravers, and Struthio is the head of the Still.
Okay, I'm gonna go to Volodymyru.
He's still in the shack with Poco outside. He takes a look at you and he says, "What's up?"
Well, do you need me to take over?
He looks at his friend that's in there, and he looks back at you, and he says, "I think we got it good for now."
All right. Well, I guess I'll ask you. Why not? Right. Do you know about Rain?
City way up north?
Yeah.
What about it?
How would one maybe want to get there? How if someone wants to go there, what is the fastest way that one might?
You got about a month?
I don't know.
Well, I guess the fastest way would be to go from here directly to Margaritaville, and then hop on a boat from there to Halbane, and then go from Halbane to Rame. But from here to Margaritaville is a really long journey. And even going straight away, that'd take it a couple weeks. Probably want to stop by some cities on the way, restock on provisions and whatnot.
That's fair. Yeah, and I did have my fair share of seafaring adventures. Well, thanks.
Of course.
Yeah. Keep good watch.
Will do. And he shoots you like a 2-finger salute.
3 fingers. And then I think I go to a place where I can rest.
Okay.
And I sleep for the night.
You go to Bane Sleep. Roll for sleepage.
8.
Okay.
Unless there's a mod.
Oh. Tiredness. What is Bane's tiredness rating?
11.
Okay. You got an 11 for sleepage. That's a pretty good sleepage roll. The next day dawns. You wake up and you begin to do your morning stretches. You feel fully refreshed, and the wound on your leg has stopped hurting entirely. What do you do with your day?
Do I feel any weirdness in my body at all?
Not besides your scar that's still, like, pulsing.
Every now and again?
Yeah.
Or is it constantly pulsing?
Every now and again.
Okay. I think I get up and I go out and I do my morning stretches in my underwear. And I get back in and I wear my pants.
Okay.
And
you do not have a shirt!
I don't have a shirt on now.
God.
I think I go and find Rice? No.
Risa.
I go and find Risa.
You skirt around Aleister until you manage to find Risa. She's working in her home. And what is she doing here? I think you find her just, like, sitting in her room at her desk, writing something down in a notebook. You can see her through her window, and as you walk by, she gives you a little wave. What do you do?
Hey.
Howdy, Bane.
Good morning.
Still sleepy there, bud?
A bit. Do you need any help?
Well, I was gonna start working on the southern quadrant. That's mostly the mercenaries that come here, and they can be a little bit rowdy, so could be useful having some help there.
Sure.
Yeah. Let me just get ready. And she, like, draws the curtain closed, and in maybe 5 minutes or so, she comes out, and she's, like, all ready to go, and she begins to, like, shape the earth around her and make, like, one of her earth boards, and she says, do you want to just stand on one of these? Do you want to run?
I'll get my job for the day.
Roll athletics.
That's an 11. It's 2 plus 9.
Jesus. So the two of you begin moving towards the southern part of Aleister and making your way down to the mercenaries part of the city. You haven't really been down here just yet. It's like a smaller portion of the city where people that come out here to live in the plains and escape nature are. But there's also, like, bounty hunters here as well. You get into this part of the city and you can see that everything gets a little bit more rough and tumble. Pretty much everybody here is wearing adventurer's gear, and there's a campfire burning and you see somebody cooking some meat. Risa looks at you, and you're just kind of, like, heaving as she's, like, standing on top of this earth board, and she, like, looks at you and she says, you gave a pretty good effort, bud.
Yeah. I don't think I had a jog. I haven't had a jog since my past life.
What a weird sentence.
Yeah, I guess so, huh?
What do you do?
So, how could I help you here? Are we just trying to tell them, hey, you gotta leave?
Pretty much. And then we're going to be helping everybody move their stuff so that they're able to go at a moment's notice. And we're going to be kind of prepping a big caravan on the east side. So she, like, sticks her...
I have a question for you.
She leans in and she's like, huh?
So, it looks like a lot of people here are adventurers.
Yeah.
Do you think maybe we could use some more arms?
Roll persuasion. With advantage.
15 plus 5 is an unnatural 20.
She looks at you and she says, you know, I was not expecting you to say that. But yeah, I guess we could ask him. Yeah, sure. Let's go for it. And she sticks out her arms in front of her and she, like, cracks her knuckles and she rolls her shoulders and she's like, let's get to it. Roll charisma. roll persuasion 3 times.
Persuasion 3 times.
Yeah.
I got an 18, 15, and an 8.
Okay. You watch as Risa moves over to, like, the center of the town, and she, like, motions towards, the adventurer that's, like, sitting near the campfire and, just, like, eating some meat. She says, you go take care of that guy. I'll check out over here, see if I can get anybody from this place.
Sure.
You move over to this guy who is, you can tell that he's been at this for a very long time. He's wearing some studded leather armor, and he is a dragonborn with these deep red scales. He looks at you, and he just, like, grabs the meat that's over the campfire and takes a huge chunk out of it and, like, chews it as he just looks up at you, and he goes, what?
Hey, have you heard of the hyena?
Like the animal? Yes.
The one that came into the city?
No, just got here today.
Oh, listen, I could use your help.
With?
The city might get attacked soon.
Okay, and what do you need my help with?
Well, you seem able-bodied and, strong.
Smart of you to notice.
Fuck.
How would you like to scratch my back? And maybe I'll help you out later.
He takes another big bite out of the big leg that he's been cooking, and he looks at you and he says,
Depends on how you'd be able to help.
You know, that is actually a tricky question. I myself don't know what's going on, but I can assure you, I am powerful.
He stands up to his full height at this point, and he is very tall. He's just about 7 feet high. He towers over you, and actually, how tall is Bane?
Bane? I would say like this 7 feet.
What race is Bane?
Bane is a human.
Bane is a 7 foot tall human.
Okay, 6 foot.
Do you want to be 7 feet tall?
I can be 7 feet tall.
Well, you're 7 feet tall. He, like, stands up to his full height, and he just, like, looks at you eye to eye. And you two are just these big burly men standing in the middle of this campsite. And he just, like, he extends a clawed hand for a handshake. Let's have a strength contest. Ooh.
14.
God damn it.
What if I rage? I'll use up a rage for this.
Go for it.
17.
Okay. You screaming just kind of like triggers something in this big dragonborn guy. You watch as he's like taken aback a little bit, and he moves his head back. He like holds your hand for a little bit, and he's like,
Sure.
What's your name?
Edmund.
Pleasure. Bane.
What do you need me?
Oh. Sorry. I think we both... Okay. My
We
name's
both what
Bane.
now? What?
Hey. Fuck.
What do you need me?
Could you go find someone called Valdemaru
he nods yes.
and tell him, hey, I'm here to help out with the fight.
He picks up his pack that's like next to the campfire, and he throws it over his shoulder. And he nods at you before he begins moving up to the more northern part of the town. And he goes off.
Cool.
Would you?
Find another one.
Roll investigation. Or roll perception, rather.
It's an unnatural one. It's a 2. -1.
Looking around the part of the city here, you don't really see anybody else that would serve of use.
I'm gonna scream, "Hey, I need strong men."
Roll charisma.
No, I'm gonna scream, "Hey, I need strong people."
Okay.
2 + 1. 3. Fuck.
You let out that big yell across the camp, and you eventually see Risa. She moves up towards you, carrying a big collection of stuff behind her, and she's got 2 other adventurers in tow. She has a bowman who's very slender and very pale. And she's also got a lizard folk who is just wearing a tunic and has nothing else. It's not him. She looks at you and she raises an eyebrow and she says, "What?"
I'm recruiting.
All right. Okay, well, did you get anybody at least?
Yeah, Edmund.
Okay, cool.
He's going over to Valdemaro.
Great. She points to the 2 with her, and she says, "This is Harry. He's a bowman." And she points to the lizard folk, and she says, "This is..." And the lizard folk just, looks at her with these, big, beady eyes, and he just goes, "Ah!" And she kind of, shrinks back, and she says, "This is a friend."
Hello.
He looks at you, and he goes, "Ah!" And, Harry just, gives you a subtle nod.
Alright, well, thankful for the help.
You see both of them nod, before, they begin moving to the north as well.
Alright, I guess. Do you think we can get anyone else?
She looks around and she says, I don't really know for certain, but...
What about that really big guy over there?
She looks over and what does she see?
There's a Goliath there.
Okay.
Who has a staff on his back.
Mm-hmm.
And is having a jovial time with friends.
Mm-hmm.
Drinking some beer.
Okay. She moves over to him, or she looks at you and she says, "Do you want to?" And then she just pauses and thinks about you yelling in the crowd, and she says, "I'll be right back." And she earthboards over to the Goliath. She has a conversation with the big fella, who just kind of turns around and crouches down to meet her eye to eye because him big. And she just kind of or you can see her talking with her hands a bunch, and eventually the Goliath just kind of smiles and then turns back to the party that he's with. And they all have a big laugh before Risa turns around sadly and skates back over to you. She says, "Oh."
I walk over.
All right. You walk over to this Goliath, and you see he's here with 3 other people, 2 humans and a dwarf. They're all decked out in pretty heavy metal mail. What do you do?
Friends, how about a game?
The Goliath turns and looks at you with a smile. Up close you can see him better. He's got this pale skin, but it looks it's like pale stone skin, and he has just like this massive red line going down his face that you can see is a big tattoo, and he's wearing these two big gold earrings. They're kind of hoopy. He looks at you with a wry smile, and he says, "What kind of game?"
Arm wrestling.
The rest of his compatriots begin to like giggle obnoxiously as he like moves towards you with like an impressive swagger. He looks you square in the eye. This guy actually is a little bit taller than you. He looks down at you and he says, "You want to arm wrestle me?"
I grab a piece of wood and I just like fucking take my axe and I chop it 3 times and it makes a little seat for me. And
roll woodcutting.
That is 21.
Okay, holy shit! Yeah, you just grab a log and you easily turn it into a little bit of a stool, or into a stool.
Yeah,
and he looks impressed, and he looks at you and he smiles, and he like looks back at his table and he says, "Boys, this will be just a minute," and he like waves his hand to like move them off the table. And he, like, moves over to it and, like, throws himself down, arm ready, and just stares at you. He looks at you in the eye, and you can smell the ale on his breath, and he says, "Let's see what you can do, boyo."
Alright, and then as soon as we, like, touch hands, I want to think about, like, how Risa came back sad. And I want to rage.
Okay, good. That's a good rage.
Athletics?
Yes.
Fuck. 9 plus 9 is 18.
Okay. 18?
Yeah.
Okay. You, like, put your hand in, and you just, like, let your body fill with rage as he grabs it. And you can easily see that the size of his hand dwarfs yours. And you fight against him for a little bit, and he just, like, takes a lean back and, like, rolls his shoulders. He, like, pretends to yawn a little bit as you're, like, putting your full effort into moving his hand, which doesn't move a single inch. He, like, grabs it and squishes your hand, and then slams it down to the other side of the table. And he, like, looks at you again with this shit-eating grin, and he says, "You ain't worth shit."
Yeah? Well, how about we try with my good arm?
Roll persuasion with disadvantage.
Fuck. 8.
He looks at you and he smiles once again and he says, "Any chance to make a weakling know his place?" And he throws his other hand onto the table.
Alright.
Let's have another strength, Gronkruss.
Unnatural 20.
Okay. You once again, like, with his other hand, you grab it and your hand is once again dwarfed, and you begin to actually make some headway. He does his whole, like, this ain't shit routine with him yawning and him, like, rolling his shoulder. But you, like, begin to, like, push his arm down a little bit. And at that point, you can see the worry in his eye. He, like, begins to sweat a little bit as he fights against you. And you get to a point where his hand is, like, just above the table. And he just, like, grabs it with his other hand and pulls with all of his might. And he just, like, slams it. Or it's it's hard for him. It feels like he's just like pushing his hand through tar, but he eventually pulls through and just barely like taps your hand onto the table before he like throws his hands up in a victorious cheer. The rest of his gang loses their shit.
You know, I'm impressed. How about we make it interesting?
What do you mean by that?
Well, you've already won, right?
Twice.
Yeah. So you won't have a problem winning a third time, right?
Roll persuasion with disadvantage.
17.
What do you have in mind? This better be good.
I mean, you win, I scratch your back. I win, you scratch mine.
Are you willing to make that choice?
Yeah.
Name your game.
This city is about to be attacked. And we can use all the help we can get.
Apparently so. I'm guessing if you're one of the people defending it, you will need help.
Sure. I mean, that just goes to show, right? How much we need help when I'm even stooping to ask you for help. With the way you're talking to me?
Stooping? He raises an eyebrow. I simply don't want to waste my time with anyone weaker than me.
Sure. What is it that you would want?
He looks pensively off into the distance as he scans his brain for the right thought. And a smile approaches on his face again. And he looks back at you and he says,
There's someone I need to get rid of.
Who?
Ideal.
I don't know them.
Mayhaps it's better that way.
Yeah?
Listen, if I lose, I'll help you.
And if I lose, I help you.
Yes.
Alright. Let's do it.
What do you do?
I tap into that rage. And I put my fucking, elbow down on the table. I think I, actually crack it a bunch as I do so.
Okay.
And I extend it. And I'm I just give him, the eye, and I'm
he looks at you, and you see a similar rage flare in his eyes. And he says,
This is going to be the easiest ally I've ever gained.
And his eyes flash red as he does, and he extends his hand out to the table. Let's have another strength contest.
I think as soon as he touches my hand, I want to use intimidating presence to just scare him.
How does it work?
He has to do wisdom saving throw.
Okay.
DC equals 8 plus proficiency plus charisma, which is 13.
Okay. Yeah, here's what happens. You, throw your hand down, and his eyes, alight with rage, and he, grabs your hand, which dwarfs it again. But as he, looks at his hand and then he looks back up at you, there is just this, vicious scowl on your face. There is, channeling all of the shit that you've been through at this one point, and you can see that he is taken aback by this. The rage in his eyes disappears, and he just re-grabs your hand with a renewed, slightly less intense vigor. Let's have a strength contest.
God. Alright, that's a 25.
Okay, alright. So here's what I'm imagining. You know how like in anime when like the protagonist says some like really good shit and they like throw their hand on the table and the bad guy just like or like in JoJo, like the bad guy like throws his hand on the table and they like lock hands and the bad guy looks away and they look back at the main character and it's just like go 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 go
Yeah.
and their like face is all dark. That's what happens. And like his you watch as his cronies like move their hands up to you guys and they're like 3, 2, 1, and it's the second they let go of their hands, you just release all of this rage that was in you and slam him down into the table, and he like somersaults into the air and like slams into the ground. Everybody in the campsite stops and stares at this as they just watch this Goliath hurtle through the sky. He's like down on the ground, like grasping his arm in pain as he looks back up at you. What do you do?
I go over to him and I extend an arm, the other arm that we've been like, not the one that we just fought with, and I say, "What's your name?"
He looks at your extended hand and he stands up on his own, still holding his arm, and brushes himself off. He doesn't meet your gaze and he doesn't shake your hand, but he merely says, "Tiberius."
Well, Tiberius. Please find someone named Fuck.
You can just call him Bolo.
Just please find Volo and let him know you're joining the fight.
He just turns and walks to the direction that you came from. Risa, you see out of the corner of your eye, is just like losing her shit. Her like hands are on her forehead and her like hair is like brushed back and it's like all flurried around. And you can tell that she was, maybe you couldn't hear it at the time because you were in pure rage mode, but like thinking back, you can see that she was like really cheering you on. She is ecstatic. She like slides up to you and she says, "Holy shit, Thaneous, that was insane!"
Thanks.
Oh my god, I don't think I've ever seen anybody do anything that he tumbled through the air. He was like 8 feet tall, dude.
Yeah. I also did headbutt a crew to that.
She like looks back and she's like, "Yeah, you're right."
But I appreciate the enthusiasm.
Yeah, of course. Say, listen. Any chance you got any knack for magic?
I don't. That is not my strong suit. I always relied on someone else for that. And I start to look down and just get carried away in thoughts.
She like takes a step back and she's like, "Oh, sorry, I don't want to pry, but hey, if you're ever into geomancy or interested about it, just let me know. I'll teach you what I can."
Thanks, that sounds dope. Oh, teach. Oh, that reminds me. And then I start running through Seattle.